This podcast is brought to you by Free Buddhist Audio, the Dharma for your life. Our work is funded entirely by donations from our generous listeners. If you would like to help us keep this free, make a contribution at freebuddhistaudio.com/donate. Thank you, and happy listening.
Many of you will be familiar with the dedication ceremony that we do in Triratna. And I thought what we could do to start is just do the dedication ceremony in call and response, in the same way that we would if we were about to start a retreat, or often it happens at the beginning of a retreat. So I just invite you to say it with me, or say it after me, as it were. Around this mandala.
Around this mandala.
This sacred spot.
This sacred spot.
May the lotus petals of purity open.
May the lotus petals of purity open.
Around this mandala.
Around this mandala.
This sacred spot.
This sacred spot.
May the Vajra wall of determination extend.
May the Vajra wall of determination extend.
Around this mandala.
Around this mandala.
This sacred spot.
This sacred spot.
May the flames that transmute samsara into Nirvana arise.
May the flames that transmute samsara into Nirvana arise.
So those words, we say those words often, and they're very, very strongly suggestive of a more imaginative relationship with spiritual practice, particularly with this image of the mandala, a sacred circle or a harmonious circle or a harmonious arrangement. And around this spot, this sacred spot, there's these walls of, first of all, lotuses, then of vajras, we've heard about vajras already, and we'll hear about them again later on, and flames. And I just noticed something. I've always really loved these verses. There's so much packed into them. There's these ones, but there's also the other ones that come before and after them. It's almost as if the dedication ceremony is the whole of the Dharma condensed into a few short lines. It's really very, very densely packed, and you can, I think the whole of the path is in there if you draw it out. So in a way, what I'm going to do is draw out the last of those. I'll talk about the last of those walls, the walls of flame. And I just noticed something which I thought I'd point out, and that is, it is actually poetry. And I just noticed something which I thought might be interesting, and that is that the sound, the alliteration in those last lines suggests this thing that they're talking about. So when you've got may the lotus petals of purity open. You hear the p sound? So you get the p sound, like a lotus. Sort of somehow it's soft. And then you've got the Vajra wall of determination extend. There's all these t and d sounds. And then when you've got the flames that transmute samsara into Nirvana arise, there's always, you hear this sizzling of the flames. Anyway, I just noticed that. I thought that was kind of interesting. But it is, there's something about these words I find them really compelling. Sangharakshita wrote them, and he very sensitive to poetry and a poet himself. And I think he had a moment of inspiration when he wrote these verses, I would say. And incidentally, he wrote them for the dedication of our first Triratna Centre, which was in a basement in the west end of London, right in the theatre district. And he wrote these verses. So, that was called the Triratna Meditation and Shrine Room, and we've continued to say those verses when we dedicate a particular space to the Three Jewels. So one of the things I love about these particular verses within the longer dedication ceremony about the mandala, about the sacred spot, is that it strongly suggests that Nirvana is not somewhere else. It's like Nirvana is about transforming the here and now. It's not about getting somewhere different from where we are. I think, usually we talk Well, people often use the metaphor of a journey. People talk about that, don't they? Quite. It's become almost a cliche these days. Like I'm on a journey, and in a way, it's a metaphor that is very adequate to talk about the way our lives are. So, and the Buddha uses it himself. The Buddha talks about the spiritual path, the Noble Eightfold Path, and I think that's totally valid. I don't want to diss the metaphor of a path because that's just the way we think, but often we tie ourselves up in the way that we think. It stops us from actually growing because we're always thinking, oh, it's somewhere other than where I am. That kind of way. Sometimes you get that when you meditate. You're sort of thinking, oh, I've got to get something else other than what I have. And if you notice that, sometimes you can just become more present by just realizing, oh, everything I need is right here. I just need to engage with it in a different way. And I think these verses really strongly suggest that, particularly that last verse, may the flames that transmute samsara into nirvana arise. So these flames, whatever they are, we'll talk about the flames in a minute, they change, they transmute this samsaric experience into a nirvanic experience. They transform ignorance into wisdom, and so on. And of course, this text is the dedication ceremony is very expressive of fundamental Buddhist principles. We talk about ethics, meditation, and wisdom. We talk about the three jewels. We talk about transforming body, speech, and mind. But this part is where the mandala is mentioned, and the circles of lotuses, vajras, and flames. It gives a very strong flavour of the Vajrayana, the adamantine vehicle, of which Padmasambhava is one of the foremost exponents or teachers of. He is the Vajra Guru, he's the Vajrayana teacher par excellence. More in a moment. But yeah, so that there is this very strong suggestion of the Vajrayana in this text. And actually I would say that one of the things that characterises Sangharakshita's teaching is that Vajrayana perspective is kind of there in almost all of his teaching. Sometimes it's not explicit or it's not overt, but that kind of perspective that he gleaned from his time practicing the Vajrayana and learning about it from his teachers is very much part of his teaching. Even if he's talking about something that's apparently about basic Buddhism, if you kind of look closely and listen closely, there's actually this strong current of the Vajrayana in there. And that's because I think, in a way, though that Vajrayana exposition and the images and so on aren't something extra to Buddhism, they're just a different way of engaging with Buddhism, if you see what I mean. It's not like an extra thing, it's intrinsic to the path of growth of which the Dharma is, but they're just there. He sort of understands that relationship in a very, very, I would say, unique way. People often talk about different aspects of, or different stages of Buddhist evolution in terms of so-called Hinayana or basic Buddhism, Mahayana, Vajrayana, as if they're completely discrete. But I think one of the things that he's done, which I'm deeply grateful for, is show the intrinsic relationship between those different ways about talking about the Dharma life and the actual experience and practice of being in the Dharma life, if you see what I mean. So it's like he shows what these teachings, what bearing they have on an actual lived spiritual life, if you understand what I'm saying. So yeah, and this again, he does that in this text here. So if you listen, a lot of his teaching, or maybe all of it, there is this kind of perspective. So the Vajrayana, Vajra, as we heard earlier, is a diamond thunderbolt. It's a pretty, awesome in the true sense of the word. It's a pretty awesome symbol, because it is like diamond is indestructible, cuts through everything, and a thunderbolt is an irresistible force that destroys anything that comes into its path. That's the symbolism. So it's pretty powerful stuff. It also means reality. So the Vajrayana is about seeing reality everywhere and having, as it were, a kind of sacramental relationship with what goes on. Very often there's this phrase you hear in the Vajrayana, which is take whatever arises as the path. So often we kind of think like, I need to get everything right so I can practice my Buddhism. So when everything's all sort of nicely organised and I've got lots of time to meditate, and when people stop annoying me, and when I stop getting in negative mental states, then I'll practice Buddhism. But until that time, it's just not quite the right time. Do you know what I mean? So we're constantly sort of postponing engagement with our life and with the Dharma. So the Vajrayana is saying, no. Take whatever arises as the path. So if you sit down to meditate and you're in a bad mood, engage with that bad mood, whether it's anxiety or hatred or craving, whatever it is, like actually engage with the reality of what's going on and try and transmute it. That's what we're being encouraged is probably too weak a word. Exhausted is probably a better word. Like if you're talking about Padmasambhava, it's kind of it's an exhortation. It's like he's relating to what's best in us and almost kind of demanding that we live up to that, what's best in us, what's potential within us, and really living from that. So so what are these flames? What are the flames that transmute samsara into nirvana? So first of all, just before we answer that question, what about this word transmute? I really like it. It's transmute. Sometimes, Bhante is quite fond of it. He uses it quite a lot. Words like transformation, transfigure, transmute. So basically it means to change in form, nature, or substance. That's what transmute means. Change in form, nature, or substance. So it's got lots of synonyms: change, alter, adapt, modify, transform, transfigure, convert, metamorphose, mutate, reconstruct, remake, recast, reorganize. So it gives you a sense of what we're talking about here. But the word transmute is very often used in relation to alchemy, where, of course, there's this tradition where you change the form, nature, or substance. Particularly, traditionally, it would be the transformation of lead into gold. So that's what the alchemists were trying to do. But there's that's the kind of outer level of alchemy, but there's also the inner levels, which I don't know very much about alchemy, but it's a very strongly kind of magical tradition which exists in the Western tradition, which is maybe why that word transmute carries such a resonance. Changing lead into gold, changing ignorance into wisdom, changing hatred into compassion, changing craving into contentment, changing samsara into nirvana. So it's interesting when in the order we have 10 precepts, and the last precept we say, transforming ignorance into wisdom, I purify my mind, which is quite interesting actually, because you kind of think that wisdom is the absence of ignorance, but this phrase suggests that you can, whatever energy is manifesting as ignorance can be changed into wisdom. That's what it suggests. So the question is, of course, what are the flames? What is this transmuting agent? What changes samsara into nirvana? And I just want to read you a little bit of Bhante talking about awareness, actually. This is from his talk. I'll refer to this a little bit. His talk on perfect awareness, which is one of a series of lectures that he gave on the Noble Eightfold Path, which is just really, really foundational material, and just it's such good material, those talks he gave on the Noble Eightfold Path. It's really got, it's everything's in there. It's just really extremely clear and extremely inspired of the way he talks. And again, there's this hint of the kind of Vajra world that within those talks. This is what he says anyway about awareness. Let's get myself sorted out here. Psychologically speaking, one may say that awareness is the most powerful transforming agent that we know. If we apply heat to water, at once the water is transformed into steam. And in the same way, if we apply awareness to any psychic contents, these are at once refined, and we may say sublimated. So, so psychologically speaking, one may say that awareness is the most powerful transforming agent that we know. So I'm going to talk about the flames as being expressive of awareness. It's awareness that is that transmutes samsara into nirvana. It's awareness that ignites those flames and keeps those flames burning. And in that same talk, Bhante Sangharakshita, he talks about there being different levels of awareness, or different, you could say different objects of awareness. And he talks about 4. First of all, he talks about things, then he talks about awareness of self, awareness of others, and awareness of reality. So I'm going to say something about each of those levels or dimensions or aspects or applications, even, you could say. So the first thing I want to say about things, so awareness of things, is what a lot of things there are. Like this, I'm at the moment I'm trying to learn Spanish, and it's really interesting when you learn another language. You realise just how many words there are. Like you go into a kitchen, and you know all the words: knives, forks, spoons, cups. And then you enter into another language, and all of those items, every single one of them, has got a different word. And you just realise how many things there are, how many things we're conscious of, and how many things we've labelled as a thing with a word. I don't know how many. Probably someone's calculated how many thousands of things that we know the names of in terms of the world we live in. When you think about it. You think about just in a kitchen, there's probably, I don't know how many different items, how many different things, and then there's the world, how many different countries and cities, and then there's different kinds of trees, different kind of plants, different kinds of music, different kinds of musicians. Do you see? It's like there's so many different things. And of course then so that's kind of, in a way, there's all the different senses as well. So there's not just things that we see, there's things that we hear. So there's different kinds of sounds, there's different tastes. Again, all of which, if you study food, you learn about all these different tastes, and all these different foodstuffs which you could put in your mouth, Do you know what I mean? There's just an amazing amount of things. So it's as if, first of all, we've been invited just to kind of take heed of what the world we live in, the things that we encounter, and maybe even just marvel at the sort of profusion of things. So I'm going to read a poem. Actually, I think I just read an excerpt of a poem. It's a bit obscene. Maybe I'll just read it and see what happens. But excuse me for the obscenity. And in fact, in a way, just I suppose one thing I would say about it is don't excuse me actually, but just to say that, like, it's a poem, it's not to be taken literally. Okay, I'll just say that. But this is a poem. It's by a guy called Gary Snyder, who he's usually associated with the Beat Generation, but he's usually associated with the Beat Generation. But he's a really interesting character. He was very influenced by Japanese Buddhism, spent quite a bit of time studying Japanese Buddhism in Japan, and spent a lot of time in forests in America doing fire watch. So they used to have these watchtowers and just watch out for fires. So he's spending a lot of time in the forest on his own, and really, really interesting character. I think he might even still be alive. Or maybe he died recently, but he had a really long life. Anyway, fascinating guy, Gary Snyder. This is what he says. Hopefully you get the connection. And there's a word ecstasy. We're used to the word ecstasy, but he talks about ecstasy. And I looked it up, and it means the experience or abolition of experience arising as a consequence of those meditational techniques which withdraw the practitioner from the world and even from awareness. So that's a definition I found online, just if you're wondering what that word is. He spells it slightly differently, so maybe he's talking about something completely different, but that kind of makes sense. Anyway, I'll read you the poem. So this is What You Should Know to Be a Poet by Gary Snyder. All you can about animals as persons, the names of trees and flowers and weeds, names of stars and the movements of the planets and the moon, your own 6 senses with a watchful and elegant mind. At least one kind of traditional magic, divination, astrology, the Book of Changes, the Tarot, dreams, the illusory demons and the illusory shining gods. Kiss the arse of the devil and eat shit. Fuck his horny barbed cock. Fuck the hag and all the celestial angels and maidens perfumed and golden. And then love the human, wives, husbands and friends. Children's games, comic books, bubblegum, the weirdness of television and advertising. Work long dry hours of dull work swallowed and accepted, and lived with and finally loved. Exhaustion, hunger, rest. The wild freedom of the dance, ecstasy. Silent, solitary illumination, ecstasy. Real danger, gambles, and the edge of death. So it kind of gives you somebody who's really trying to experience human life to the absolute fullest. So he's really interested why all the different range of experiences that a human being can have, and in all its variety. I don't know, just for some reason I find that a really inspiring poem. Within all that, if one wants to develop depth, I think what one has to do is to decide on one particular aspect of experience that one's going to focus on. You know, because if you took that poem literally, it would just be like, what's that movie, Everything Everywhere All at Once, or something like that. I haven't seen the film, but just the phrase, it's like, you know, you can only do so much with your life. So when you're experiencing something, you can, in Buddhism saying, really experience it fully. Usually we don't, because we're distracted. We're not fully in anything. So if you're going to do something, really do it. Don't try and do everything at once, because you can't. And if you try, you end up just getting even more disintegrated. So I want to read you another little poem, and this is expressive of, in a way, the other side, which is focusing on one very particular aspect of experience, or one particular facet in the whole range of different human experiences that we can have. It's by a guy called Thomas Buick. Has anyone heard of him? I'd be surprised. You've heard of him? Oh, well, that's great. So he was a famous artist. He made he devised a particular kind of wood cutting to print books. This is in like the late 18th, early 19th century. He's English, and he produced these printed books of, in particular, of birds. So there's this famous book that he produced called the Book of British Birds, I think it's called. The history of British birds, history and presumably in the sense of natural history. So he spent a lot of time looking at birds, but he also was very famous because he developed this very original technique where you could create much finer kinds of printing. And they're really fascinating. And the thing that's, I think, worth kind of realising is that when he was looking at birds, he couldn't take a photo of them. You know, because birds don't stay still, do they? If you try and look at like a finch or a sparrow, or maybe not so much a crow, but some of the smaller birds, they just move so incredibly quickly. They never stay still for a moment. So if you wanted to depict a bird, you wouldn't be able to just sit there and draw one. You'd have to kind of get a very, very vivid sense of what the bird looked like, probably, and go away and draw it. I mean, you could probably draw a stuffed bird, but I wouldn't imagine that you get the same kind of sense of life from the bird. So this is the poem about him looking at birds. It's by a poet called Tom Gunn. He's a British poet who lives in America. Anyway, this is not a characteristic Tom Gunn poem, by the way. So this is Thomas Bewick. I think of a man on foot, going through thick woods, a bubble on his brimmed hat, a stick in his hand. He comes on from the deep shadow now to the gladed parts, where light speckles the ground like scoops out of darkness. Gnarled branches reaching down, their green gifts, weed reaching up, milky flower and damp leaf. I think of a man fording a pebbly stream. A rock is covered in places with minute crops of moss, frail stalks of yellow rising from the green, each bloom of it distinct as he notices. He notices the bee's many-jointed legs and its papery wings veined like leaf, or the rise of a frog's back into double peaks. And this morning, by a stile, he noticed ferns afloat on air. Drinking from clear stream and resting on the rock, he loses himself in detail. He reverts to an earlier self, not yet separate from what it sees. A selfless self, as difficult to recover and hold as to capture the exact way a burly blue tit grips its branch, leaning forward over this rock and in the history of British birds. So you get a really strong sense of somebody just really keenly absorbed to the point where he just forgets he's even there. It's really fantastic the way he says it. He says, he reverts to an earlier self, not yet separate from what it sees. A selfless self is difficult to recover. We know that, don't we? You have those moments where you're just in the experience, you're not adding anything onto it, you're not taking anything away from it, you're not even thinking, you're just absorbed in experience. And you want to get back there, and by trying to get back there, you're even further away than if you don't. You know that kind of thing? Often you notice this in meditation. So all of a sudden you just become really absorbed. Oh, goody, I'm getting absorbed. And then you're not absorbed anymore. Yeah. Anyway, hopefully that gives you a bit of a sense of, just to give a bit of a flavour of awareness of things. And then there's awareness of self. Bhante talks about, quite traditional really, he talks about the body and its movements. So just noticing your own body and the way that it moves, being aware of that, all the different feelings that arise in the body, different sensations. Again, there's just so much that goes on. It's kind of almost bewildering just how many, if you start to pay attention to your body, just how many different sensations are arising all the time. And then it's, feelings and emotions, that whole kind of inner world of, feelings and emotions. Again, there's so much going on. To say nothing of thoughts, sometimes it's just this riot. I mean, there's a puja that we're going to do later on, and the line in the puja says, "May the innate unrest be stilled." There's this sort of constant production of, what does Yeats say? Images that yet fresh images beget. There's this constant stream of images and thoughts and images and thoughts and images and thoughts. So that's all part of awareness, is noticing that. Again, just noticing, a little bit like akin to Gary Snyder, just sort of marvelling at all the stuff that's there in experience. So that's, I won't say very much about self. And then there's awareness of others. So it's quite a thing to actually really get to know another person, you know. Because obviously when we're talking about awareness here, we're not just talking about awareness that there's a person there, but awareness of another person suggests that you're actually interested in them from their own side. It's really strange, but you know, I've got my experience of the world and you've got yours. In fact, everybody in this room has got their experience of the world, and there's millions of us, or billions of us actually, all over the world, all who've got this kind of very vivid experience of the world. That's kind of real. It's kind of amazing when you stop and just actually pay attention. There's sort of like everything opens out. And of course, what's really lovely is when it's reciprocated, when you're aware of somebody and they're aware of you. Well, I suppose in a way, real communication can arise from that, because you're actually communicating with who's actually there, and they're communicating with who's actually here. Often we talk to each other. We talk to kind of almost like we talk to other people, but what we're talking to is an idea we have of the other person. I think a lot of our communication's like that. So one of Padmasambhava's teachings, which is kind of famous, but again I think it's very characteristic of the Vajrayana attitude, which is in a way just characteristic of the Buddhist attitude. And Padmasambhava says, let these three expressions, I do not have, I do not understand, I do not know, be repeated over and over again. So I think that's particularly important when you're talking to with other people, just reminding yourself that you don't know who's there. That there's layers to a person, you know, and even if you've been around somebody for a long time, they can still be surprising. It's one of the wonders of friendship, actually, is when you get somebody surprises you. You think you know how they're going to respond to something. You think that you know who they are, and they do something completely surprising. Can also can be quite unnerving as well, depending on what they do. But yeah, so getting to know others, and then reality. So I'll say a little bit more about reality in a moment. But what Bhante says, again, what he often does in his teaching is he'll lay something out quite fully, and then he'll just drop in little hints. He'll suggest something much broader, just with a little remark here and there. So that it's quite. If you look closely, again, look closely. But if you look closely, you'll notice things. What does he mean by that? And in a way, he's not laying that out because he wants to give you something to go away and think about. And I think some of the best Dharma reflection is when you're kind of taking a Dharma teaching as a starting point and then bringing it further with your own reflection. You're not being told what to think, in other words. You're being invited to explore. Because really, that's what the Dharma does, is it sets us in a particular direction and just gets us to investigate really, really deeply, to examine really, really deeply what it is that we think we're experiencing. This is a little thing that he says. He's basically taught quite fully about these four levels of awareness. He talks in the talk is about an hour and a bit, I think. I can't remember exactly, but it's at least an hour, maybe an hour and a half. Most of it is just him sort of explicating these levels of awareness. And then he says, each of these principal levels or kinds of awareness has its own distinctive effect on us, on the person practicing. Through awareness of things as they are, we become free from the taint of subjectivity. Awareness of self, awareness of one's own self, refines our psychophysical energies. Awareness of others stimulates. And awareness of reality finally transmutes, transfigures, and transforms. So there's that word again. So I thought I'd just comment about these. I mean, in a way, this is a few thoughts that I've had about, well, what does he mean by that, you know? What does he mean by those little suggestions? Through awareness of things as they are, we become free from the taint of subjectivity. So in other words, if we're really aware of things as they are, we no longer see them in terms of what we can get from them. We don't see them in terms of what they mean for us. So I think that Thomas Buick poem really suggests that he's just completely absorbed in like a bee's wing, you know. It's not like, what can I get? Well, I mean, bee produces honey and honey tastes nice and I like honey. You know, that's the way we often relate to the world. It's just we relate purely in terms of what does this mean for me, this thing? You know, is it something I like? Is it something I don't like? Do I want more of it? Do I want less of it? Is it a nice colour? Is it not a nice colour? You know, it's like, does it taste good? Does it not taste good? Do you know what I mean? It's like, so that's subjectivity. It's like, what does it mean for me? You know, but if we really become absorbed, we're just aware of the existence of that thing, that in a way that's not referencing our existence. So drinking from clear stream and resting on the rock, he loses himself in detail. He reverts to an earlier self, not yet separate from what it sees. You sort of see, it's like you forget yourself is suspended. You're just seeing what's there. You get this a lot in Far Eastern Buddhist poetry, you know, from China and Japan. You just get these sort of descriptions of often nature. They're not sort of adding. They're quite unfussy. Not sort of adding anything on. Just saying what you see. So there's a whole kind of tradition of that. But there's the notion of tata, which is suchness. Things are just such. They're just such. They're just the way they are. Don't add anything to it. Just see them as they are. It's quite lovely, isn't it? Because I mean, if you get into that state, it's just very pleasurable, but in a very in a way that doesn't lead to attachment and craving. A sort of non-sticky pleasure, which is a really super important quality to cultivate, you know, according to the Buddhist tradition. And that's a whole other riff there. So awareness of things removes the taint of subjectivity. We just see things as they are, not as we want them to be, or etc. And then awareness of self, awareness of one's own self, refines our psychophysical energies. So this is another little excerpt from the talk. He says, by becoming more aware of our emotional life, we will find that unskillful emotional states, those connected with craving, hatred, or fear, will tend to be resolved. Whereas the skillful emotional states, those connected with love, peace, compassion, and joy, will tend to be refined. I think that's quite good just to remember that, particularly if you are in a difficult mental state. You sit down to meditate, you think, my goodness, I'm in a difficult place right now. But if you just, what this is saying is, you just sit there and try and bring awareness to that, it will resolve. And that's actually been my experience. I mean, not that I've resolved all of my quirks or kleshas by any means, but I have, to some extent I have, you know, and sometimes I'm not really sure how that's happened. It's not like I've gotten underneath it and figured out what it was that happened to me when I was 7 that's led me to have this particular, you know what I mean? Like in that kind, I haven't been able to unravel it in that kind of way, but somehow it's unraveled. The knot is untied just through awareness. And still more to do, certainly, but I just find that a really encouraging kind of idea. You don't have to kind of understand it all and figure it all out. It will just resolve. In the same way that if you put a pot of water on the stove, it'll turn the heat on, it'll warm up, turn to steam eventually. See, it's easy. It's really not easy, but you know, that's the problem, isn't it? It's like you talk about stuff, you talk about spiritual practice, it makes it sound easy, and it is easy conceptually. You can string a whole lot of concepts together and it makes sense, but it's not the same as working with the actual texture of your inner life, is it? Yeah, getting a few nods and nods and yeah, and this is a lovely thing to think about as well. Skillful emotional states, those connected with love, peace, compassion, and joy, will tend to be refined. So sometimes, you sit down to meditate. It's lovely when this happens, and you just notice that you're in a good frame of mind, and it's like you don't really need to do anything except just relax into that, and it just opens out. Again, sometimes I think if we're not sufficiently aware, we don't even notice that we're in a good state, and we actually apply the wrong kind of effort, where actually what we need to do is just kind of relax. I'm talking to myself here. But yeah, so awareness of self refines our psychophysical energies. So psychophysical means, body and mind, basically. And I think you notice this particularly if you go on a retreat. It's like your attention just becomes more sensitive. You just become more attuned. So it's easier to get into that sort of state that's described in the Thomas Bewick poem. You just get really interested in looking at a tree or looking at a tadpole swimming around in this. You know what I mean? There's this kind of subtlety and refinement. It's a really lovely state, actually. I don't know if there's any other way to get into that state than going on a retreat. I just love it. It's like something happens to my mind. It's like, oh yeah, I'm in that retreat consciousness. It's really lovely when it happens. So yeah, part of that refinement is a unification. It happens because our energies are unified. So again, this is one of the features of awareness is that when we become aware of our mental contents, so to speak, they become more whole, more unified, less dissipated and unintegrated or disintegrated. So there's a kind of a wholeness, a recollection, a kind of gathering that takes place. I was meditating yesterday morning. I had a full-on Friday, just a lot of talking. None of it was particularly unpleasant, but there was just a lot of it. And I had quite a late meeting as well. I was talking to someone until 10 o'clock. I was quite involved, so I went to bed. Then I woke up, I was a bit kind of like agitated, and I just sat, and I sat for a while, and then afterwards I just felt everything had just kind of fallen back into place. Just through being, it was a bit of a mess in a way. Like there's just so much stuff, that kind of thing when you've got a lot on, you sit down to meditate and all just floods into your mind, which is natural enough. But even just the process of just being aware of that, things kind of settle in their kind of in the right kind of place. So that's a little bit about awareness of self. There's a lot, of course. There's loads you can say about every single one of these headings, and if I don't hurry up, I won't get to say all the things I thought I might say. So awareness of others stimulates. So in a way, at the face of it, that's quite an obvious thing, isn't it? Awareness of others stimulates. But I suppose the point is that in terms of the Dharma life, we really do need stimulation. We need to kind of get ourselves going, and often that arises through communication with somebody else. We feel like somebody else's energy kind of rubs off on us. There's a kind of a resonance there, and this is, I was just thinking about this because that can arise through being physically with a person. But I've just been reading about this New Zealand writer, and he had this tiny little house, and all of the walls in his house were covered in books. And he says something like, I like to be here with my friends around the walls. So he's kind of an interesting character because in a way he was as much of a reader as he was a writer. He read everything. He'd read all the kind of classics, he'd read Dante, and he'd read, all the kind of, he'd read Gibbon's Rise and Fall of the Roman Empire, which is a huge thing in like millions of volumes. So he just was a real reader, but he talks about his books like his friends. So, and in a way that you can see why, because when you read somebody else's words, it's like you get into a dialogue with that person. So in a way, they are a friend, in the sense that they stimulate you. They kind of get you moving, your thoughts moving in a particular direction. It's why, for example, that Sangharakshita, Bhante, our teacher and our founder, was so keen that his works, all of his writings, would be available so people could read them. So that's why there's 27 volumes of the complete works, because he wanted people to read what he had to say. You might think, why? But I think he just really felt like he had something that was really important to say that other people weren't saying. So he wanted to say it, and he wanted people to read it, not as a kind of like an act of egotism. I really don't think that was what it was about, but because he wanted people to hear the Dharma and his particular interpretation and expression of it. And letters, like being in communication with people who aren't physically present. This is a little bit from John Donne, the metaphysical poet from many centuries ago. He says, "Sir, more than kisses, letters mingle souls, for thus friends absent speak." It's quite a bit more to the poem, but I thought that was lovely. Sir, he's writing to a friend. This is just the beginning of a poem about that long. "Sir, more than kisses, letters mingle souls, for thus friends absent speak." So it seems that in England in the 17th century, men would kiss each other quite freely. It doesn't seem to happen these days. But more than kisses, letters mingle souls. And of course, this is epitomised. This kind of stimulation is epitomised in the Dakini, the symbol of the Dakini, which we have. I wouldn't want to reduce the Dakini to that, but it's certainly strongly expressive that in the Vajrayana that the Dakini represents that sparking off of communication between people. So, sometimes talked about as the esoteric Sangha refuge. She's the esoteric Sangha refuge because she represents that the energy that is sparked off, that's ignited when we encounter somebody and we really deeply communicate. So we're really deeply seen, we really see the other, and then between us something really takes fire, ignites. All right, so that's a little bit about awareness of others. So awareness of things removes the taint of subjectivity. Awareness of self refines and sublimates. Awareness of others stimulates. And awareness of reality finally transmutes, transfigures, and transforms. So again, you read that, he's talking about the Buddha's Noble Eightfold Path, which is, it's a fundamental Buddhist teaching. But here you get a really strong tincture of Vajrayana, you know what I mean, within that exposition, which is mainly kind of drawing from early sources. It's really fascinating. And I suppose the first thing to point out is when he talks in this way, it strongly suggests, it's more than suggests, it states that mindfulness, awareness, is much more than just awareness of the self. I don't know, I haven't looked into kind of contemporary mindfulness much recently, but often I think that the focus is on the self. I think that's changing. But it's what's talked about here is a sense of awareness as having this massive scope, not just awareness of things and self and others, but something that kind of goes deeper than that and sees things truly, sees ourself truly and sees others truly, sees a sort of a kind of glimmering of reality through those things. So it's almost as if awareness of reality is not another level. It's like a deeper. It's like there's a sort of an outer level, an inner level, and a secret level or something. That there's something going on at a deeper kind of level or a deeper layer. So you're not. It's not that reality is an extra object. It's like a way of perceiving, if you see what I mean. It's a little bit hard to talk about. Do you know what I mean? It's not just another object of awareness. Like there's this thing over here, there's this thing over here, and there's this thing over here, and that thing over there is reality. It's not quite like that. It's like a different order of thing that you're talking about when you're talking about awareness of reality. And I think what he's talking about is like one way of describing it, and this is very much the kind of Vajrayana way, is you kind of come into a sacramental relationship with the world in which you live in. In other words, everything kind of means something. Interestingly, I was looking this up. The word sacrament comes from, it's a translation of that's a Latin word. It comes from translation from the Greek word, something like mysterion or something, which is the word that we usually translate as mystery. So the word mystery comes from that word, which is connected with the word mystic. So it's not about, obviously, in Catholicism you have the sacraments, but what you're doing is you're imbuing particular objects, particular people, particular places with some deeper significance. That's what I mean by sacramental. Not something, not religiosity in the narrow sense, but in a way it is religious in the sense that you're seeing that life has got a deeper meaning. So it's religious in that sense, which is probably the only useful sense of the word religion for us these days. But in a way, it's sort of saying that life is a sacred thing. That's why I think also I really love those verses around this mandala, this sacred spot. It's like we're making the sacred by what we do, and that is the Buddhist approach, isn't it? It's like it's not about things having some kind of inherent sacredness or not. It's what we bring and how we respond, how we act, in other words. It comes down to karma. It's like our action. That's what makes something significant or not. And it's like this awareness of reality is trying to see those significant things and being sensitive to those significant things and making something of them. So it's changing our relationship with what it is that we're in, both from the subjective pole, ourself, and the objective pole of things and other people. So I just read a book about this. The reason I keep talking about poets and artists and stuff is because I think for a lot of us in the kind of modern world, that's where we find meaning, because conventional Western religiosity has ceased to be meaningful for a lot of people a long time ago. But people, particularly artists, I think, have found their way into this kind of sacramental relationship through beauty, I suppose. So I've just been reading this book about Derek Jarman, who's a British artist and filmmaker, and he bought this cottage by the coast in Kent in a place called Dungeness. It's quite a bleak kind of environment in a way. There's a huge, great big nuclear power station and this shingle beach, and he bought this cottage and he kind of made it just through what he found in the environment. He brought these things into his house. So every single item in his house, this guy basically did a kind of photo essay of the house with pieces of writing. And he talks about all the objects in the house and what they meant. So they all mean something. They're all like props from one of his films or a gift from a friend or things that he's found on the beach. And he's kind of integrated them into this kind of, it's kind of a mandala of meaning and significance. But it's all, a lot of it is kind of found, or he's made artworks out of things that are about his life. Really fascinating. So he's kind of changing his relationship with the world in which he lives in a kind of conscious, yet kind of creative and imaginative way. So that's I think where if we can do that ourselves, well, life just becomes way more interesting, way more rich. It's a kind of sensibility you get. I was just thinking of those of you who are from here will know this poem. It's A Christmas Child. Did you know Patrick Kavanagh's poem about growing up in Monaghan? He says, he's talking about Christmas time. He says, so when WHIN is gorse or furs, he says, I looked and 3 wind bushes rode across the horizon, the 3 wise kings. So for him, those bushes are the 3 wise kings. It's like, there's another few examples. He says, the tracks of cattle to a drinking place, a green stone lying sideways in a ditch, or any common sight, the transfigured face of a beauty that the world did not touch. That's what he says in the same poem. So it gives you a sort of sense of it. Outside the cowhouse, my mother made the music of milking. The light of her stable lamp was a star, and the frost of Bethlehem made it twinkle. You sort of see, so he's living in this magic world. Now, it's obviously, that time of year is very magical, but it's almost like the Dharma's inviting us to have that kind of magical experience all the time, particularly on a day like today. It's like, I think for me, and this may be speaking personally, but maybe more than that, I think that's part of the reason why Padmasambhava Day is so important. It's inviting us to have that kind of sacramental relationship with not just the world, but like with the Buddhist Centre, with this sacred spot, with the other people who come to it. Just sort of see what I mean? So, and that's what we part of that is like the magic of language. By changing the way that we describe and the way that we talk about what we're doing, we actually change what we're doing. So when we talk about somebody, we talk about spiritual friendship. It's like, when we talk about that, it's like we're opening up the possibility of what a relationship between people means. It sort of changes it somehow. It brings out more of the meaning that's latent within it. I think that's the important thing, that these symbols that we're engaged with, it's not like adding something on top of experience, it's like helping us to understand the true nature of experience. So sometimes the Vajrayana seems really bizarre. There's like a red, naked woman enhaloed by flames, garlanded with bones, dancing in the sky. And you're like, oh, okay. But if you get into it, it says something about the nature of the possibility for a liberated consciousness. That's one thing you could say. You could say a lot. That's the other thing that's so wonderful is the symbols are multivalent. In other words, they have lots of different meanings. But just to begin to explore symbolism in that kind of way is just really, it just opens out life, I suppose. So the Vajrayana, one of the things that's characteristic about it is it gives expression to abstract teachings in concrete images. So a lot of what you find in the Vajrayana is Buddhism, but given concrete form. So, for example, there's Vajras on the shrine. There's so much that those, you see that, I'll just grab one actually so I can tell you what I mean. But, it's two sides to it, and one side is samsara and the other side's nirvana. And that's, to put it kind of simply, so on one hand you have the 5 skandhas, form, feeling, thought, choice and consciousness. On the other side you have the 5 jnanas, the 5 wisdoms that are Padmasambhava has the jewels of the 5 wisdoms on his crown. You've got wisdom, you've got ignorance, you've got the mundane, the transcendental, you've got the conditioned and the unconditioned on both sides. But what's really interesting is that you see there's that middle spoke goes all the way through. In other words, there's a connection between the conditioned and the unconditioned. So in other words, and this is the really powerful thing, we have an affinity with the unconditioned because of our nature as human beings. It's like, this is speaking obviously metaphorically, there's something about the nature of our consciousness which has an affinity with the nature of enlightened consciousness. This is how it is that we come to the 3 jewels and there's a spark of recognition. It's like, there's something about this that I know. I know what this is. Somehow, it's like what I would have said if I'd known how to say it. And people often say that when they hear the Dharma. It's like, if I'd only known how to write this, I could have written that. I couldn't have, but somehow there's a sense that it's something to do with me. So this is given expression in different Buddhist teachings, but in the Yogacara, I think this comes out particularly. It's like this idea that human consciousness is structured it tends to be structured in a way that everything comes back to self. So there's this habitual clinging to self that in a way kind of spoils the potential of that consciousness. But if you can turn that around, then there's the turning about on the deeper seat of consciousness, the pavariti that they talk about, where it in a way is the same apparatus, but it's kind of turned on its head. But it's not like you have to become something other than you are in order for that to happen. It's like a latent possibility within your mind. So the Vajra symbolises all that. It's like this potential, this affinity between samsara and nirvana. So I read you what Bhante says when he first encounters Padmasambhava. So he describes the image, and then he says, this is in 1951, I think it was. He's in Darjeeling, and he comes across a temple with an image of Padmasambhava. He says, having taken it all in, I felt that it had always been there, and that in seeing the figure of Padmasambhava, I had become conscious of a spiritual presence that had in fact been with me all the time. Though I had never seen the figure of Padmasambhava before, it was familiar to me in a way that no other figure on earth was familiar and fascinating. It was familiar as my own self, yet at the same time infinitely mysterious, infinitely wonderful, and infinitely inspiring. So you sort of see, he's had this experience of something touching him, which is something that's not him, but something that is about him very, very deeply. So I think to a greater or lesser extent, we have this experience when we encounter the three jewels. It's something to do with us, but it's also something strange. And the Vajra symbolises that connection through the sort of like the spoke that goes all the way through. And I mean, there's so much more that you could say, but a lot of what we're trying to do is to find correspondences between the so-called mundane and the so-called transcendental, so that things that we see that are mundane remind us of the transcendental. In a way, that's what we're in, and that's the game. And I use that word advisedly. It's like if you get into it, it's like a game. It's like play. You change your relationship with what you're seeing. Children seem to do this kind of naturally. They naturally make a world of play out of what the symbols that are in their minds. I've just been reading about this New Zealand writer Janet Frame, and she reads Brothers Grimm. And her and her three sisters are like in the story. They're the characters in the story without thinking about it. It's kind of we're talking about that, but with a kind of an adult, self-aware consciousness, living in that kind of world of play. So there's also the mantra. There's the image of the Vajra. There's also the mantra of, well, not just Padmasambhava, but any of the figures, and the 12. I mean, I got really into this a few years ago. I play music, so it's like there's these 12 syllables of the mantra. Aham Vajra Guru Padma Siddhi Hum. There's 12 syllables. 12 is an amazing number because you can divide it into 3s and 4s and 6s and 2s, and it's etc. I got into this whole thing of correlating the mantra of the Padmasambhava mantra with the different notes of the musical scale, and you can just go bananas with this stuff. And it's really quite fun because you start seeing how you can. The idea is that you see the transcendental in the mundane. It's not somewhere else. And of course, there's the actual figure of Padmasambhava himself, and he is the centre of a mandala. So when we talk, when we're talking about Padmasambhava, we're evoking him. We actually did that earlier. We invoked Padmasambhava. We asked him to be here. So that's what you could call a kind of a formalised expression of spiritual receptivity. You're just opening yourself up to something to speak to you. Not just something, but someone. I think this is really key. That reality speaks to you, not as an impersonal thing, but as almost like as a loving, compassionate presence. So I'll just read you a poem. I'm going to finish soon, don't worry. But this is called The Voice of Silence. He says, this is Sangharakshita talking. He's talking about having been aware of the whole range of experience, you become absorbed in one particular aspect of it. So he says, close eyes, behold no more the rich array of forms and vivid colours. Touch, be still, grope not for lover's hand or lips that will sting you awake to bliss by night or day. Relish no more the scent of new mown hay or flowers or incense, nostrils. Take your fill of tastes no more, O watery tongue, nor trill delicious notes in cadence grave or gay. For when the senses and the sensual mind are laid asleep, and self itself suspended, and naught is left to strive for or to seek, then to the inmost spirit, thrice refined, thrice pure, before that trance sublime has ended, with the voice of thunder will the silence speak. So what does it say? What does the silence say? Maybe it says, Aham, Vajraguru Padma Siddhi Hong. Like we expect a teaching to be in the form of words, but I think if we can engage in this kind of way, then it's not just about words, it's not just about teachings, it's about a different way of being in the world that's harmonious and whole. So that, Padmasambhava, and that's why, partly, why we have them in the centre of the room, there's a sense that once you've got a centre, everything else kind of falls into place. So again, I think that's part of the beauty of the image of a mandala, is that it represents harmony. So we talk about vision and transformation, or transfiguring, or transmutation, but it's as if that transmutation happens when everything finds it's sort of, in a way, its place in the whole, and then there's peace. You sort of see what I mean? It's not like we get rid of everything or everything gets pushed out, but everything comes into relationship with everything else. But that can only happen if there's a centre. So just to return back to where we started from, there's the image of the Katvanga, the image of the staff, the Tantric staff. So you see Padmasambhava has one, actually Vajrayogini has one too, the staff, the Katvanga. And if you see, you can see it quite clearly on this one as well. The top of the Katvanga is a trident, it's 3 prongs. And they are representative of the 3 jewels, and they're on fire. And also, that's what's represented on our kesa, the 3 jewels on a red lotus, enhaloed by flames. So all of what I've been talking about is what happens when we go for refuge to the 3 jewels. That process of transformation arises, but it can only arise when we have something in the centre. So that idea of centrality is really super important. Maybe I'll just leave you with this thought that you'll know this if you come across much of the Pali Canon. There's this classic formula, a refrain that happens when someone meets the Buddha. They go for refuge to him, to the Dharma, and to the Sangha, and they say it's as if a lamp was taken into a dark room, or those who are blind can see forms, or something that was knocked over is brought upright. So it's very suggestive of the sense that when we have a centre, we kind of know what we need to do. We kind of know who we are and where we are. But strangely, that's a kind of an active process. We have to actively participate with that. And the Vajrayana, Padmasambhava, it's like an invitation to reconfigure, to transmute our relationship with the world in which we live in a much more kind of an imaginative and beautiful kind of way.
We hope you enjoyed this week's podcast. Please help us keep this free. Make a contribution at freebuddhistaudio.com/donate. And thank you.